after Bob Ballard found Titanic's wreck, and he found that she was 10 miles east of where she thought she was, then the inquiry was reopened in respect of the evidence relating to the Californian, which was the nearby ship, and the inspectors of the British government who were assigned to that task disagreed, and one of them said the Californian was 7 miles away, and the other one said that she was actually 19.5 miles away, but that she could have seen Titanic due to super refraction. And that was the first one heard that word. And they also said that the rockets may have appeared low because the rockets may have been exploding in warm air higher up that was refracting normally, whereas Titanic may have been in the refracting layer. And I instantly realised that this theory had the power to solve the Californian incident. And in fact, this is a bit too detailed for early on in the interview, but I actually, at that stage, believed Captain Lord that he was 19.5 miles away, and I thought, oh, this is why he appeared 5 miles away, because the light was bending. Actually, what I found out in my research is that he was 10 miles away, but he still appeared 5 miles away because of the bending. But what I didn't realise is that solving the Californian incident would lead to discovering how the Titanic could hit an iceberg on an absolutely clear night.
I think it was overconfidence as well.
Yes, overconfidence, yeah.
And still, it's nature.
Correct. You've got it exactly. Which is that, I mean, the only thing I wouldn't say is that overconfidence, yes, we were trying our best to do the best, as we always try to do. But rather like the Challenger shuttle disaster, if you remember when the school teacher...
Exactly,
that was also due to freak cold weather. And the O-rings couldn't expand quickly enough in the cold weather, and then the thing exploded. So basically, we're not good in unusual conditions. You know, human beings are used to normal conditions, but the night when Titanic sank, the conditions were literally abnormal, and you had abnormal refraction, you had abnormally cold air low down. So yes, we were very, very confident, but we had a good reason to be very confident because ships had gone full speed in ice region, in clear weather, for years and years and years, and ships faster than the Titanic had gone full speed in clear weather in ice, and that you can always see ice in time. What my research revealed, as well as all this abnormal refraction, was that you get miraging when that happens, and that miraging is described by people who don't know it's a mirage as a haze. And this links in with what the lookouts said, because for 100 years, no one has believed the lookouts on the Titanic who said the iceberg came out of a haze. But in fact, mirages appear like a haze, and they appear like a haze because you can see so much further in a mirage, that there's so much more air between you and what you're seeing, that the light is scattered by the molecular structure of the air, and it appears like a haze. So in fact, when the lookout said there was a haze but it didn't affect our visibility, you know, we could see a long way, when Lightoller says we seemed like we could see a long way, they absolutely could. What they didn't realise was that, for example, I should show you so you can see it, but should be white as well. Let's say that's the iceberg there. Normally you could see it if you were down this level. You could see it against the background of stars or whatever. But that night, the light bent down around the curvature of the Earth, making the Earth appear to raise up like this, and that's called a false horizon, and that's a superior mirage. So it wasn't the iceberg itself that was miraging, it was merely the miraging horizon behind the iceberg, which reduced the contrast. And in fact, the clear horizon with stars that the lookouts were looking at was not the horizon where the iceberg was. The iceberg was on the near horizon at 10 miles. So unfortunately, they were caught out in a freak way that they would not have expected to be caught out.
So is it like a first time ever that this happens on the sea? Like the captains, who are supposed to be the best ones?
Oh, well, I don't know is the answer, but what I do know is miraging is very common in cold water areas. You often get mirages in the Labrador Current. And in fact,
it's an expected...
Yes, it is expected, but it's only expected by people who are used to navigating in ice. And normally you don't get that much ice in the North Atlantic. In fact, Titanic sank. Titanic's wreck site was actually 13 degrees Celsius 2 days before the accident. And what my research revealed by looking at all the logbooks from 100 years ago is that the cold and warm water at Titanic's wreck site did not mix, because cold and warm water do not mix. And the Labrador Current flowed like a river, a freezing river, through the warm Gulf Stream. And the Gulf Stream had heated Titanic's wreck site like a radiator, heated the air all the way up to 13 degrees Celsius. But then this cold water came in like a freezing snake, flowing through the area, and it started to cool the air column from the bottom up. And what that created was very cold, dense air low down with very warm air higher up, and that's when light bends down towards the thicker, more dense air, and it messes everything up. It's the exact opposite of a desert mirage, where warm surface means less dense air with colder air higher up, and the light bends towards the colder air above, and it shows us the sky. And we read the sky on the ground as being water. So we think there's an oasis in the desert when there isn't, or a hot road. On a hot day we think there's puddles of water on it, when actually it's pieces of the sky which our brain interprets as water. So that's because when the surface is hot, light bends up, and it brings the sky down, and when the surface is freezing cold, light bends down, and it brings stuff that's hidden below the horizon above it. And it brought the distant horizon up and camouflaged the iceberg, and it caused the Californian not to come to the aid of the Titanic. Or if she'd been going slower, she could have turned quicker. Not true. Titanic's turning circle at 11 knots is the same as her turning circle at 22 knots. See, what you realise is, what you're left with is, we don't know what it was, or we didn't know what it was, and also that we're left with testimony that doesn't make sense. We're left with lookouts that talk about haze when it was a totally clear night,